So welcome. We've been doing some technical debunking here, and we think we found the problem with the one mic, and
we're bunked now.
We're bunked.
Who comes up with that? I don't know.
And we do have a live peanut gallery today. I'm sure we'll benefit from the input from there.
We have one salty nut.
One salty nut.
I'm not seeing us as live.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Oh, there we go. Oops. There we go. It is live. It is live. Okay.
So announcement for this Sunday is we will be dedicating the organ. Jeff will have some special music for during like anthem time, and I think he may be utilizing ghost playing, so we don't know.
Some of our
we
don't want to give any surprises away.
Some trickery.
He's saving that for October. The ghost
organ trickery.
Organ trickery. And we will also have Worship and Arts is going to sponsor a chat. I think their plan is to have it outside.
It is.
So
I have not checked the weather.
I think it's supposed to be nice.
It's supposed to be great for the next 2 weeks. So the accuracy of that,
50%, as well as any forecast could be, right?
So if you're temperature challenged, you might want to bring a coat or something to hang out outside.
I think it's going to be fine.
I think it's going to be fine. I mean, it's nice right now. It was a little chilly ride in on the motorcycle this morning, but it was enjoyable.
That was 70. It's supposed to be 81 on Sunday.
Well, that's not going to be it.
Is this where I'm at? Yes. Okay. I was making sure it's not like, Florida or something. No, 81 here. So by the time we get out of church, it will be lovely.
Yeah.
So it's the first Sunday fellowship hour.
Right.
So there are no faith formation classes for adult or children on Sunday. We're all going to be fellowshipping. Getting to see everybody.
Yeah. So if you've been, not that everybody sees this, but if you've been feeling a little closed in or cabin feverish, come on out and see some of your fellow parishioners and have some
cookies.
Have some cookies.
There are going to be cookies.
I think Betsy said she's making coffee, so.
Well,
there's a chance that there'll be less shade out there on Sunday.
There is
Sunday
a chance.
I'm putting a pop-up up because I was requested to do that. So there will be that shade over the food because we have a bird problem. We don't need any extra sprinkles on the cookies. So
Russ is hoping that the trees will be remedied, the issues that we've had with the two trees adjacent to the parsonage and the garage out there. So hopefully those will be taken care of. And for those of you who hadn't known, we've had some tree experts come out and they have recommended, because of the deterioration of the trees, that they do come down. So council voted to do that.
And I just learned how to make maple syrup, and my trees are gone. It'll be fine. I'll be out there looking for maple trees to tap in February.
Okay.
But yeah, those are the announcements. We have 8 people with us, so hello. Can you hear us?
Yep,
I
that's
hope.
the big question.
Can you hear everybody? Does everybody say something?
Something.
I hope. Nobody's
saying
replying.
No.
Sue's here.
So who all do we have online?
Sheila's here. Sue's here. Other people I can't see because I'm not in the Facebook account. I'm not in the church's account. I'm on my personal one. So
Okay.
I don't know.
So I see Sheila just said hello. Hello, Sheila.
So she can obviously hear us.
Betsy can
Hopefully.
hear us.
Yes. Deb, loud and clear. Oh, yay, look. We got online correctly. Everybody can be heard. Look at us.
Fresh batteries. It's all good.
Okay, and 12:01. And we don't have the bells.
I know.
FYI, anybody who's out there Julio, Trisha. So Caroline's not working anymore.
It may got booted off when we had a power surge.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm thinking. I haven't been back there to check. I don't really know what I'm looking at to check anything. I guess I could check and see if the thing is on or not. But anyway,
All right.
note to self
Note to
or
self.
anybody else who wants to figure out how to use the Caroline.
So do we have, what else do we have coming up? We have trunk or treat at the end of the month.
Trunk or treat on the 30th. It's a Saturday,
So
5 to 7.
if you want to
I think.
sponsor a trunk,
Yeah.
see Belinda.
Don't see Betsy. She'd be like, why are you talking to me about that?
I send them all to Betsy anyway.
Send it to Betsy. Hey, Betsy, you're online. What is this red flower that feels like a velvet cauliflower here in this arrangement? Any ideas? I don't know. Anyway.
So November 7th will be All Saints Sunday.
Yes.
So as in the past, we will honor those who have gone before us this year. So if you
Since
have someone
last All Saints.
since last All Saints, so if you have someone that you do want to pay tribute to, make sure you get some information to the church office so that we can include that.
Name, relation, and date of death is the information we need.
Is that the okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
She'll keep you straight.
We'll keep it straight.
It's brain celosia.
Okay, a brain.
That
I
figures.
was going with cauliflower, but brain would work as well. Interesting.
And then on
Distraction.
shiny object.
This is life
on,
with me.
November 14th, we're going to be celebrating our veterans because Veterans Day is the 11th. So if you are a veteran, we'd welcome you to come and be recognized. If you have a veteran that you want to recognize, then just let us know in the church office so we can include that in the bulletin.
And tomorrow, backing up into more closer times, tomorrow the mission statement survey ends. So if you have not yet left your comments on the 2 mission statements, please do that. You can check the link in the weekly email, and it's also on the website homepage. So you just easily click through there, read what's going on, leave your comments. We need to hear from you
Yep, because we're going to try to meet
next
Later.
Tuesday.
yeah, next Tuesday and get everything together and figure out where we're going before we send something to council.
Yep.
Cool. Anything else? Property-wise? No? Yeah.
What's not going on?
What's not going on?
We're starting on the security system.
Cool.
So, or the security upgrade, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah, and just for those of you who might not know, we are in faith formation. We have children and adult faith formation. So adult faith formation meets in the parish hall.
Not this Sunday, but the 10th.
Right.
Returning on the 10th.
So one of the things that we talked about trying to do was maybe go through the social statements as we're going through them as well. But if you have other ideas, I'd welcome them.
Is that your time to argue about stuff?
I hope there's no argument.
Or discuss.
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 Question.
I mean, that's what we did
More
last year
questions.
was we took a deeper dive into the gospel lesson for the day. So balance it out. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yep.
It was suggested that, it would be nice to have another platform in person, perhaps not online with some of our social statements to have the opportunity to discuss without it being, out there on the internet for all to see and eternity. Right. So that's another offering. But if you're here, you might not want to be there, or maybe you want to be both places. I don't know. But if you're there and you're just creeping and you want to know, or you watch it later and you're like, I have tons of questions. Sundays.
Sunday. All right. So what are we talking about today?
Are you asking because you don't know?
Sexuality.
Or
Are you not prepared?
I did not prepare.
I was like, not prepare. So, human sexuality, gift and trust, which I thought was kind of an interesting name for this, but then as I read it, it made more sense.
Yeah.
So again, those people who put this together are much smarter than me.
And I think the real gist of this is the one statement in the introduction where it says that, you know, we shall love our neighbor as ourselves.
Right.
And that's really the crux of what we're supposed to do here in respect for people in relationship, because I think that's really what this document goes to is relationship in our lives. And it's not just familial relationship, it's also relationship with, you know, those who are in our congregation, those who are in our community, etc. And kind of how we're going to, it's on the first page, Diane.
The first page of what? What are you looking at specifically?
The social statement.
Of the social statement or the
social statement.
Okay, the actual social statement, not the
All
summary.
37 pages.
It's 48 pages.
No,
I'm
38.
I'm looking at it.
Well, a lot of it was
References and stuff.
references,
So,
right.
okay, gotcha.
So-
Okay.
and that's really the great, you know, for Diane's edification, that's part of the greatest commandment. You shall love your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. And then the second commandment of the Great Commission was to love your neighbor as yourself. So we want to treat those who are in our sphere of influence as we would want to be treated as well. And it kind of goes through a lot of the basic tenets of how we see our faith. You know, we come and we're justified by grace through faith, and you know, because of Jesus Christ, we are our faith in Him. We are saved by God's grace, and that allows us to walk in this world and be a part of other people's lives, not just, like I said, not just, you know, in our family, but how do we deal respectfully with those outside of our families as well. And you know, we are created in the image of God, so it's kind of how we're supposed to look at this. You know, living our life, you know, we're our own masters, but then again, we're not.
I do believe Luther had something to say about that.
He did. That was part of his discussion on the two worlds. You know, the earthly world and the spiritual world, and that's where Luther said a Christian is perfectly free, Lord of all, subject to none, and then perfectly dutiful servant of all, subjects to all. So, you know, you kind of fit in that way. And it's the basis of our Christian life. So one of the cruxes of this is that we don't rely on ourselves. We don't rely on ourselves as humans to be in relationship. We rely on God to put us in those relationships, to help us to foster those relationships. And then, you know, because of God's gift, this freedom leads us to a vocation to be humble servants to our neighbors. And that leads to specific responsibilities where we are to take care of our neighbor, and sometimes that's complicated.
I think that, you know, to me, that part with Luther, you know, you're free and subject to none, and dutiful servant subject to all, kind of really holds the tension that this statement has. There's a lot of tension with a lot of these statements, but this one in particular is, you know, it's personal, and yet it's not. I liked that it emphasized trust. And when I you know, we said we were going to do human sexuality, of course, I understood that to mean we're talking about more modern, more contemporary issues of same gender or transgender.
Right.
And honestly, out of the 23 sections of this, only one of the sections
Dealt with that.
dealt with that. And so I was like, so what? There's a whole lot more going into this.
Right. And it really,
than
than
that.
It really truly is about relationship and not just the identity, and because frankly we shouldn't really care about identity. We should just care that we're being with people. If someone identifies as whatever, then okay, but that's the way you have to embrace that and not worry about what. One of the key things in here, it says, is that this church itself does not agree on same gender, other gender, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Go down the litany of everything. But that we are called to be in relationship with people no matter what. Even
when again, with that tension of conflicting opinions.
So yeah, in this one, on page 5, Diane, paragraph I highlighted, it says, in these narrative of God's creative activity, we understand from the beginning that love and trust are at the heart of God's relationship with human beings. We also understand that creation is God's ongoing activity and not yet complete.
That was a new concept to me too.
Yeah. I mean, and it was for me kind of in seminary when we were talking about the Bible maybe being an evolving document, as opposed to it's sit here and it's cut in stone. I think there's ways for us to interpret different things within the Bible as how they evolve with how we evolve in God's creation.
Well, things are a little different now than they were, thousands of years ago.
Just a little.
Just a few things are. Or are we fundamentally still the same fallen people in need of grace? I think, you could go the other way. Everything is more complicated or it's exactly the same.
But I think that, in a couple paragraphs down, it says the dignity of human being reflects God's deep love and stands against all form of violence, discrimination, and injustice. And I think that pretty much sums this up, is that that's not what we're supposed to subscribe to. We are subscribing to the love of neighbor and being in relationship with people, as opposed to ostracizing or shunning or whatever, kind of what we'll hear in this week's gospel about divorce,
Well, I mean, they go into a lot about trust. They hit trust about 1 million times in this, where when you speak to somebody, if you disagree with them or if they are completely different than you, they should have the trust that they could safely interact with you without, feeling like they have to be frightened or something's going to happen or anything like that. There should be a comfort level.
Right, and that's again, what is highlighted in this document is trust and support, as opposed to, separation and division.
Yeah.
And it really goes to, the fact of us coming beside those who may have been persecuted, may have been abused, may have been however in relationships, but it calls for us to not do that and to be that support for people who may be feeling that. And I think if the more we open that ourselves up to that, the more we allow people to experience Christ in our life, and that's, one of the, I think it was somewhere in here or another devotion I was reading was about how divorced couples, and we're looking at divorced couples now, not just as man and woman, but as same sex or however, how they may feel they don't have a place to come because they feel they may be not targeted, but just kind of singled out because of what their situation is, and most of us don't know what the situation is, so we need to be able to not judge and allow people to trust us that we will be the ones to support them.
And it was not only, different makeups of families, but also single persons.
Right.
Who chose or, didn't choose, for whatever reason, are their own singular family unit.
Right.
And that's what this statement said to me. It was more about, building trust in personal relationships and societal
and there's not a stigma
or social institutions, I think it was, and they were very adamant, I don't know if that's the right word, about the supporting the family structure in whatever form that may be.
Right.
And then the responsibility of in the workplace, even it went to sexuality in society and sexuality in public ministry and sexuality in the workplace. So it was going pretty deep. That's further down. But so this is a pretty big statement. How do we want to go through this?
Yeah,
are you planning on going through all 38 pages there? Or?
I don't know.
He gave us the summary, so we're
Oh my gosh.
So we are working on a 4 or 5 pages. I mean, I have them all up here because I didn't know what direction you were going, but the 4-page summary. Do you have that?
I do.
That's what you have too, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm just making sure we're all on the same page of the right document here.
Yeah. No, I brought this so that we can reference,
right,
as we go through, and I think mostly for this document, it goes back to talking about the 10 Commandments, goes back to talking about the Lutheran confessions and what we as Lutherans believe and what we as Lutherans espouse and what we as Lutherans should be living out. And it's really not just Lutherans. I mean, yes, the social statement
it's a pretty Lutheran-y there at the beginning of that social statement.
A lot of these things can apply to daily living for anybody.
Yeah. I concur with that.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of the, like you said, Belinda, that when we talk about sexuality, there can be certain.
Do we talk about sexuality in church?
We don't.
I've been a member of this church since I was 3. I don't recall any conversations.
Surprisingly enough, though, this social statement calls for sexual education in the church.
I know. This is the second one in a row that we've had that.
And I read what they were, and it was very, very vague as to, but it's really, I think, comes down to making sure that our children and even us as adults act appropriately when it comes to how we exhibit our sexuality, right?
Well, they also go into, based on the age and and the maturity level of the person, they should be educated based on their maturity level and age.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So they do give some structure to that. They're obviously not going to tell you exactly what you should be telling people, and I mean,
because it's also going to be different regionally and culturally, depending on
familially.
What.
Right.
And what we're comfortable with. We here in Walkersville don't talk about it at all.
Right.
Those things handle themselves.
We just don't talk about it. I mean, but honestly, that's true. I think my students anyway, that I've had the last couple years, are more open to the discussion of sexuality because they
have access to it.
Well, they are more comfortable talking about the changes, the differences, and the similarities. It's just more accessible. It was not talked about when I was a student. You didn't talk about that.
No, my dad.
You got the health class for
here's
like
a book.
3 weeks and PE in ninth grade, and that was it.
Yeah.
Never to be spoken of in a public forum
Right.
again. I don't know if that's everybody else's experience, but that was mine. So, but that's not the experience of students today. It's an issue on the forefront in whatever, because family units are different than they used to be, I think. Maybe not. Maybe that's just me. Out of the ballpark with that one. It's not you. It's not.
And like you said, this one thing on page 11, it says, although not all relationships are sexual at some level, most sexual relationships are about companionship. Some people remain single, either intentionally or unintentionally, and all people need and delight in companionship and are all vulnerable to loneliness. And I know, my great aunt, she was never married for her entire life, and she thrived, and she found other things that filled and made her joyful in her life, which part of was teaching Sunday school and being,
But she wasn't reclusive. She sought companionship.
Absolutely, right.
Because that was vital.
Yeah.
To everyone's mental well-being, really.
Right, and I think we all have a longing for connection. We all want to be able to have relationship with others. I would say that hermit lifestyle is probably not the norm. I would hope.
It's a lot easier to do now, though.
It
You want
is.
to choose to do that.
Hashtag 2020. But I think this statement calls for, again, back to the word trust, not to harp on that too much, but it really was establishing trust so that those relationships are safe.
Right.
For
everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, and
which I was not expecting in, when you hear the statement called human sexuality, I was not expecting the emphasis on trust as much as it is, but it makes sense.
Yeah, and I think I will be honest, as I read through this was not really what I expected it to be.
Nope.
I was expecting, but again, it's a document that's written back in 91 or 93?
2009.
2009? It's that late?
Yes.
Oh.
Put your glasses on.
It was on that,
2009.
It had a 9 in it.
It had a 9.
Had a 9 in it. Just a 20 in front. Yeah, it's more relative.
Even since 2009, so much has changed in our
perspective of things.
of relationship.
Well, and that's the thing. These documents get looked at again. So, if I wouldn't be surprised if we turn around and not very long and they're addressing this again. Especially since there isn't a consensus on a lot of things that are legal now that weren't when this document. Maybe 2009, maybe. I don't remember when.
I don't remember. It was, but they are admitting, things will be divisive.
Right.
And will continue to be, but respect.
One of the things I highlighted was on page 14 of the social statement was about how we understand human sexuality in relation to service to our neighbors. And what it says we boldly affirm that trustworthy relationships and social structures will promote value and respect human dignity of each individual. I think that's really goes back to your trust. protect from physical, emotional, spiritual harm, demonstrate mercy, compassion, and justice for all, especially the least of these, those who are most vulnerable in relationships in society. And I think that goes a lot to embracing people who may have suffered as a result of not being on the correct end of this. You know, it's where we need to really stand beside someone and support them, even though we don't know the circumstance. We need to help them walk through it. Ensure accountability and responsibility in relationships and community, promote the welfare of individuals and the common good, and value the security and protection afforded through the making of promises, including social and contractual commitments. And these are founded on loving that include and reflect an abundance of agape love, unlimited love, forgiveness, compassion, care, and concern, and passion, excitement, and joy, and care for neighbor.
And he's done. That's it. Arms crossed.
No,
That's
I'm
over.
not done.
Yeah, but it's a lot. Like, you know, I don't know exactly what you were alluding to, but the most vulnerable, you know, it is talking about those who are, you know, the victim of sex trafficking, or in abusive relationships, or in a position where a person of authority and trust are abusing that authority and trust to take advantage of someone else. Which was, again, not what I was expecting from this social statement. But it's what the church is called to do. You know, I feel like human sexuality was more of a personal, individual, you know, my choice kind of, nobody really needs to be in that business kind of thing. But then after reading this, I was like, oh, I can see where it is a community, societal kind of
Right.
thing. And it's not about, you know, my decision to be
Choose
in
one way or the
relationship
other. Right.
with whomever. It's more about supporting that relationship, whatever it is,
For anybody. Right.
and helping support that trust that they are building.
Build the trust. And that kind of flows into, you know, the next part of it where it talks about marriage and you know, the being a foundational structure that supports our community. And as I was reading this over and over again, I was,
How many times did you read these 38 pages?
Well,
a few,
certain
apparently.
certain parts of it I did, because
Okay.
I was just going back to like
It
kind of
is
take it in,
interesting.
and was kind of moved by the fact that, you know, we look at now that we have you know, your heterosexual marriages, your live-in relationships, your same gender marriages and stuff, and what is that all about? It's about professing your commitment to one another. And that's really what marriage is to me about, is, you know, professing that commitment and being faithful to that commitment and trusting in the other person to do the same thing. So, you know, it's not whether we agree with this or that or the other thing, it's, does that work for them?
It's
Or-
the sanctity of the marriage, the commitment that
right.
they have to each other
That's right.
that
Right,
that
and they-
matters.
And they go into how the church opposes non-monogamous, promiscuous, or casual sex relationships, because these are transient encounters that don't build the trust.
Right.
Right.
There's no trust.
They
there.
don't build the relationship. They don't
Right.
build the trust. It's just, you know, it's just fulfilling.
An urge.
There you go.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what a lot of this, and you know, it also says they don't favor cohabitation. You know, they want people who live together to be married, but they understand
That
the
there are
circumstances
situations
of the
that-
world.
And we look at it now, especially among our elder community members, is that for them, benefits, health benefits, whatever, may suffer if they do get married because there's a penalty or whatever. So that's kind of why the church looks at it like this, is because there are certain circumstances where, yeah, okay, you're living together, you've been together for, I don't know, 15, 20, 25 years, but you're not married, but you're still basically, committed to the other person like you are married, but you're able to save your whatever benefits or health care or whatever might be put in jeopardy if you were not to be in that situation.
Right, and they go into, the reason that they don't favor cohabitation is because if you're married, that's more of a commitment, and that's more of the trust and the stability and the things that will give you comfort. If you're not married, the assumption is you just get out of there. But I mean, nowadays that can happen anyway if you're married or not. But
True.
Right.
I think that paragraph that you're talking about, Russ, with the church believes that the deepest longing for a sense of personal worth, long-term companionship, and profound security, essentially given the human propensity to sin, is best served through a binding commitment, marriage. Surrounded by prayers of the community and promises of God. But they recognize that there are social forces. Again, it's kind of like last week's with abortion. There are circumstances that can't be addressed in 6 sentences or 38 pages. But the thought, the concept of a strong binding relationship is still there.
And I think that's one of the key points of this document, is that it's that foundation that's built together that keeps people together, that commitment, the trust, the love, the everything, all making that not a foundation, but a strong commitment.
Okay. I was going to say something. I don't know where we're going with this. Are we going to continue this discussion next week, or
So I think
or
we
you?
might have to.
Because I have some questions like, what do we say to those people who are bring up Bible verses about sexual immorality and are using it in context of people who are living together without the benefit of marriage, or
But are they
in a
bringing that
same
up
gender,
so that they can have some
they're
vindictiveness against people, or some sort of comeuppance, or
that's
where this gets into? This is more like
that's the perception of all Christians.
Understanding and support, not condone necessarily.
Right.
So I think, and whether I'm right or not, I don't know, but I think in the Bible you can find a circumstance for each side of the coin, no matter where you look.
Right.
So you talked about the immorality in the Bible, and
Well, because it like referenced Bible verses, the statement will just have, Bible verses in parentheses. And I was like, I don't know what that one is. And I looked it up, and it was, the whole, so I was like, I don't know how they're using this in defense of the statement that they just had. So, I mean, for me, that was confusing.
but I have to know which one you're talking about.
It was up, there was one in Galatians and there, anyway, but
there are some that talk about.
But there are people who use those kinds of verses in a mean way.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And how do we
So I think, like I said,
bring that back around to a conversation that's more constructive, respectful, and worthy of
Well,
trust?
if you're looking for judgment of people, you can find a million things to do that about. But I don't think that's what any of this is about, though.
Right.
Because that's not our job.
Right. Like
No,
I said,
our job is not to. I'm talking more of like, this is my
how do you
stance.
bolster
I agree
your
with
argument
this.
against?
Not
Right.
argument, but be able to handle that sort of thought process that people have, because I mean, even just in recent weeks, like, not that I agree with that sort of thing. And I was like, I don't understand what you mean. I mean, I don't know how to, without handing them 38 pages of how to trust and.
Well, but I think that's part of it, really, and we've talked about this from the get-go of us doing this. It's about having the conversation, and it's about being able to listen to this opinion or that opinion, and then have the conversation to either agree to disagree, or, hey, I now see your point of view, or...
Well, even if you do, let's say that, they say this is wrong and, it's sinful and this and that. What are you going to do with that? Ostracize those people? No, that argument doesn't go back to what we're supposed to do.
But I think, we're all sinful. So where does that put us?
Right.
We're all in the sin boat,
Right.
right? And like Luther said, sin big, and
But I also don't want people to, in saying that, oh, you think that the way I'm living per se
but that's
is a
part
sin.
of us not judging. That's
Right.
part of us not. That's
But
part of us respecting others.
But
in
feel
their,
others who might feel judged by the things we say.
Absolutely, and that's what this document advocates against, is not being that contrary advocation, not being that burr in the saddle of someone who, okay, you're in this type of relationship, that doesn't fit what I want, so it's wrong. It might not be wrong in certain situations to certain people, so we have to be respectful, and at some point, there's going to be a judgment, and it's not going to be by me or you or him or him. And that's what we have to rely on. We have to rely on our faith in God, that we are trying to do our best, that we're trying to do what Jesus, cliche, what Jesus would have done. But, we also, what would God want us to do? Just think about that. Would God really want us to, berate somebody or, hate somebody because of the way they're living their life? Sure, we might find it distasteful, but we don't understand the situation that people are in.
I was just trying to play devil's advocate, that's what I'm just trying to stir the pot a little bit. I mean, because these are tough issues, and I think, in everyday life, you need to know how, if we're going to discuss the statement, you read the statement, which I do suggest everybody does read the statement, or at the very least the summary, but the statement is put together well.
Yeah. And I will admit that I've grown over my 55 years and, become more tolerant. And tolerance probably not the right word.
Accepting.
Yeah. Right.
That's probably the better word you're looking
for. But that was.
Or understanding.
And understanding different people. I mean, I have a really good friend who, was a seminarian at Gettysburg, and through the time that she was there was very difficult for her, because at that time the Lutheran Church didn't accept, the LGBTQ community. And she graduated, and she was not able to be ordained in the Lutheran Church because of that non-acceptance. And that really made me look at things a whole lot differently, and made me realize that, and sure enough, the church has changed. And we're still growing. We're still trying to figure it out. We're still trying to make sense of everything in this world, because not everything in this world has easy answers. And, for me to, say that you're wrong, well, that's not my place. For me to say I don't particularly, understand, that's how we open the conversation, and that's how we find out. And my friend has been in a long-term monogamous relationship with somebody else, and they're happy. So who am I to say that that's wrong?
You're not supposed to say that's wrong.
And I'm not.
When I was looking for clip art or something for Facebook for this particular statement, they have a new logo for Reconciling in Christ. The ELCA has a new logo for Reconciling in Christ, which of course then I went down a rabbit hole.
No, that's a big rabbit hole
of
to
what
go
that
down.
was, and I was
Yep.
like, oh, that's a lot to learn as well.
Yeah, yes, it is.
So anyway, you might see that next week. I thought it might be confusing because it only really pertains to the one section of the statement.
Yeah.
But anywho, so
I
it
think,
is
it's
20
almost,
of 1.
So I think what we do is we'll finish this up next week, and then maybe talk about the social message.
yeah, there
following
is
week.
a social message, and it's called Sexuality, Some Common Convictions. And that was written in 1996. So oddly
maybe
enough,
that's where I got my.
that is older, but
That's probably where it started.
does seem more contemporary, but it does talk about single life, married life, responsible procreation, parenting, ending a marriage, and then misuses of sexuality that the church does not abide by.
So, are there any questions out there today?
Diane wanted to know if your friend was ordained today. Is
She's
she?
an Episcopalian.
We lost him to the Episcopalians.
Yep.
But there is a relationship with Episcopalian and Lutheran churches now.
Very, very close relationship with the Episcopal Church, and obviously,
Closed captioning is even spelled Episcopalians right.
Wow, look
I'm
at
making
that.
it do it again.
And again, this really comes back to loving one another regardless.
I heard some scoffing out there in the peanut gallery. Did you have a question?
I have some comments, but I'm not sure they're appropriate.
Oh,
Comment away.
we're allowed to.
I think the Bible is full of contradictions,
Absolutely.
and you can find a contradiction to support your particular point of view anywhere you look.
Yep.
But the biggest contradiction of all that I found, and I'm probably wrong about this, but that's just me, that Jesus probably would not have been born if Ruth had not married outside her.
You never, and that's again, that's the whole lineage of David. How does that fit, right? And
But there was a law against marrying outside the Jewish or the.
correct.
What he did, he married Ruth, who was Amorite.
Yes, Boaz the Amorite.
Yeah.
Right.
And if that hadn't happened, that line would have been broken.
Where
I
we
think
have
that
been.
goes right to what we've been talking about: is how do we embrace others, not necessarily the same as us.
And one more thing, I don't think I read anywhere in the Bible where Jesus had one word to say about homosexuality.
He did not.
Birth outside of marriage, even a prostitute or the woman that he saved
From being stoned.
adulteress.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
It's more simple than being an adulteress because you died for it.
Well, and we'll see this week, and he is challenged by the Pharisees about divorce, and Jesus didn't bring that up himself, but then he kind of threw it back on them as to how not necessarily the divorce, but you look at what divorce was back in those days. It was really a legal license for the man in the relationship to do whatever the heck he wanted. There were no rights for the woman, no rights for the children, especially. The children were basically counted as property until they reached age of maturity. So that's what Jesus is really affirming in this week's gospel, is that it's about how do we how do we make things right? How do we even things out, and how do we look at those who are less treated well than we are?
I concur. My favorite Bible story is still the woman at the well.
Woman at the well.
Yeah, I mean, you're
7 husbands.
living with a guy who's not your husband now, but she was the woman, the person that Jesus revealed himself to first,
Right.
and used her to
And she
save,
became
a
one
whole
of his
community.
greatest disciples.
Yeah,
And she wasn't a Jew.
she, no, she wasn't.
She was a Samaritan woman.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you say, like, what would Jesus do? That, he does go to the most vulnerable, to the most ostracized. And I think he would still do that today.
I think so too. I believe so. I have faith that he would.
I have faith that he would.
So.
Okay.
Okay.
Good talk, people. Good talk. So we'll be back with this. You'll find some more links to the full statement that we talked about, as well as the messaging. I'll put the links up on the Facebook.
See you next week.